Welcome to this comprehensive presentation on the small intestine, where most digestion and absorption happen. The small intestine is a remarkable organ, measuring approximately 6 meters in length in living individuals. It serves as the primary site for both chemical digestion and nutrient absorption. This organ is divided into 3 distinct segments, each with specialized functions that work together to process the food we eat and extract the nutrients our body needs. Let's explore the 3 segments of the small intestine. The first segment is the duodenum, which is the shortest section at about 25 centimeters long. This is where most chemical digestion occurs. The second segment is the jejunum, measuring approximately 2.5 meters in length. This is the primary site for nutrient absorption. Finally, we have the ileum, the longest segment at about 3.5 meters, which completes absorption and has specialized immune functions. Now let's focus on the duodenum in detail. The duodenum is the chemical processing hub of the small intestine. It receives partially digested food from the stomach and mixes it with critical secretions. These include bile from the liver and gallbladder, which emulsifies fats, and pancreatic enzymes that break down proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. The duodenum also secretes bicarbonate to neutralize stomach acid, creating an optimal pH for enzyme activity. Clinically, the duodenum is significant because it's a common site for peptic ulcers due to acid exposure. The anatomy of the duodenum includes important entry points for digestive secretions. The major duodenal papilla, also called the ampulla of Vater, is where the common bile duct and main pancreatic duct converge and empty into the duodenum. This is the primary entry point for bile and pancreatic juice. There's also a minor duodenal papilla, which is the opening for the accessory pancreatic duct. These structures are functionally significant because they control the flow of digestive secretions and blockages. Here can lead to serious conditions like pancreatitis or jaundice. Moving on to the jejunum, this is the primary absorption segment of the small intestine. The jejunum is structurally specialized for maximum nutrient uptake. It has a thicker intestinal wall compared to the ileum, more prominent circular folds called plicae circulares, and longer villi. These features increase the surface area available for absorption. The jejunum is also highly vascularized with an abundant blood supply that efficiently transports absorbed nutrients to the rest of the body. What exactly does the jejunum absorb? It absorbs simple sugars like glucose, fructose, and galactose from carbohydrate digestion. It absorbs amino acids and small peptides from protein breakdown. It absorbs fatty acids and monoglycerides, which are packaged into chylomicrons for transport. The jejunum also absorbs water-soluble vitamins, including vitamin C and B complex vitamins, as well as minerals such as calcium, iron, and magnesium. Most of this absorption occurs through active transport mechanisms that require energy. The ileum has specialized absorption and immune functions. While it continues the absorption process started in the jejunum, the ileum has unique responsibilities. It's the only site where vitamin B12 can be absorbed, thanks to intrinsic factor from the stomach. The ileum also recycles bile salts through the enterohepatic circulation, which is essential for fat digestion. Additionally, the ileum contains Peyer's patches, which are lymphoid tissue aggregates that monitor intestinal bacteria and mount immune responses, serving as a critical component of gut-associated lymphoid tissue. Let's compare the jejunum and ileum to understand their differences. The jejunum has a thicker wall, more prominent circular folds, longer villi, and more mesenteric fat. It's located in the upper left abdomen. The ileum, in contrast, has a thinner wall, fewer and smaller folds, shorter villi, and less mesenteric fat. It's located in the lower right abdomen. Clinically, these differences matter. Jejunal resection typically causes more severe nutritional deficiencies because it's the primary absorption site, while ileal resection specifically affects vitamin B12 and bile salt absorption. At the end of the small intestine, we find the ileocecal valve. This is a sphincter mechanism located between the ileum and the cecum of the large intestine. The ileocecal valve serves several key functions. It regulates the flow of intestinal contents from the small intestine to the large intestine, prevents backflow of colonic bacteria into the small intestine, and controls transit time to allow adequate absorption. This valve is essential for maintaining the distinct bacterial environments of the small and large intestines. One of the most remarkable features of the small intestine is how it maximizes surface area for absorption. The small intestine employs a three-level amplification strategy. The first level is circular folds, which increase surface area by threefold. The second level is villi, finger-like projections that increase surface area by an additional tenfold. The third level is microvilli, which form the brush border and increase surface area by another 20-fold. Together, these adaptations create a total surface area of approximately 200 square meters, about the size of a tennis court. Let's examine the circular folds more closely, also called plicae circulares or valves of Kirkring. These are permanent transverse folds of the mucosa and submucosa. They're most prominent in the jejunum and gradually decrease in the ileum. These folds force chyme to spiral through the intestine, which slows transit time and increases contact with the absorptive surface. This structural feature significantly enhances both digestion and absorption efficiency. The second level of amplification comes from villi. These are finger-like projections of the mucosa, each measuring 0.5 to 1.5 millimeters in height. Each villus is covered by a single layer of absorptive cells called enterocytes, along with goblet cells that secrete mucus. The villi are most numerous and longest in the jejunum. At the base of the villi are intestinal crypts, also called crypts of Lieberkühn, where stem cells continuously regenerate the intestinal lining. This constant renewal is essential because intestinal cells are replaced every 3 to 5 days. The third level of amplification is the microvilli, which form the brush border. Each enterocyte has approximately 3,000 microvilli on its apical surface. These are tiny projections, each about 1 micrometer in length, that are supported by actin filaments. The brush border contains membrane-bound digestive enzymes called brush border enzymes, including disaccharidases that break down sugars and peptidases that break down proteins. This arrangement allows for final digestion to occur right at the absorption site, maximizing efficiency. Inside each villus, we find a complex internal structure. The core contains a central lacteal, which is a lymphatic capillary that absorbs dietary fats. There's also a rich capillary network that absorbs water-soluble nutrients like amino acids and sugars. Smooth muscle fibers allow the villus to contract and pump absorbed materials into circulation. The lamina propria, which is the connective tissue core, contains immune cells that provide local defense against pathogens. Now let's discuss where macronutrients are absorbed. Carbohydrates are absorbed primarily in the duodenum and jejunum. Brush border enzymes break down disaccharides into monosaccharides, which are then absorbed via specific transporters like SGLT1 for glucose and GLUT5 for fructose. Proteins are also absorbed, mainly in the duodenum and jejunum. Pancreatic proteases and brush border peptidases break proteins down to amino acids and small peptides, which are absorbed through peptide transporters and amino acid carriers. Fats are absorbed throughout the small intestine, but predominantly in the jejunum. Bile salts emulsify fats. Pancreatic lipase breaks them down, and the resulting fatty acids and monoglycerides are absorbed into enterocytes where they're repackaged into chylomicrons for lymphatic transport. Regional absorption patterns show us that different nutrients are absorbed preferentially in different segments. The duodenum absorbs about 10 to 20% of iron, calcium, and some B vitamins. The jejunum absorbs 50 to 70% of most nutrients, including the majority of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and water-soluble vitamins. The ileum absorbs 20 to 30% of remaining nutrients and is the exclusive site for vitamin B12 and bile salt absorption. Clinically, this matters because the location of intestinal disease or resection determines which specific nutritional deficiencies will occur. Understanding regional resection consequences is clinically important. Duodenal resection can lead to iron and calcium deficiency due to loss of the acidic environment needed for absorption. Jejunal resection causes severe malabsorption of macronutrients, leading to weight loss, protein deficiency, and fat-soluble vitamin deficiencies. Ileal resection results in vitamin B12 deficiency, which can cause pernicious anemia and bile salt malabsorption, leading to fat malabsorption and diarrhea. Fortunately, the small intestine has remarkable compensatory mechanisms. Remaining segments can adapt and increase their absorptive capacity, though this adaptation takes time and may not fully compensate for extensive resections. Several common pathologies can affect the small intestine's function. Celiac disease is an autoimmune condition triggered by gluten that damages villi, leading to malabsorption. Treatment requires a strict gluten-free diet. Crohn's disease is inflammatory bowel disease that can affect any part of the GI tract, but commonly involves the ileum, causing inflammation, strictures, and malabsorption. Treatment includes immunosuppressants and biologics. Lactose intolerance results from deficiency of the brush border enzyme lactase, causing inability to digest milk sugar. Management involves avoiding lactose or taking lactase supplements. Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth occurs when excessive bacteria colonize the small intestine, competing for nutrients and producing gas. Treatment includes antibiotics and addressing underlying causes. Intestinal ischemia happens when blood flow to the intestine is reduced, potentially causing tissue death. This is a medical emergency requiring immediate intervention. Finally, short bowel syndrome results from extensive intestinal resection, leading to severe malabsorption. Management includes nutritional support and sometimes intestinal transplantation. Intestinal motility and transit are essential for proper digestion. The small intestine exhibits different types of contractions. Segmentation contractions are localized, mixing movements that churn chyme and increase contact with the intestinal wall. These are the primary contractions during digestion. Peristaltic contractions are propulsive waves that move chyme along the intestine toward the colon. The migrating motor complex is a pattern of contractions that occurs during fasting, sweeping residual material through the intestine. This housekeeping function prevents bacterial overgrowth. Normal transit time through the small intestine is 3 to 5 hours, which allows adequate time for digestion and absorption while preventing bacterial overgrowth. Let's summarize the key points about the small intestine. The duodenum is the chemical processing center where bile and pancreatic enzymes are added. The jejunum is the primary absorption site with maximal structural specialization for nutrient uptake. The ileum completes absorption and has unique functions, including vitamin B12 absorption and immune surveillance. Surface area amplification through circular folds, villi, and microvilli creates a massive absorptive surface of about 200 square meters. For clinical integration, remember that understanding regional specialization helps predict consequences of disease or surgery. The small intestine's remarkable adaptability allows for compensation after injury, though this has limits. Maintaining intestinal health is crucial for overall nutrition and immune function. Thank you for joining this detailed exploration of the small intestine.